I'm not going to wait for others now. Very good morning, everyone. And we have with us Dr. Suneel Pandey. He is Senior Fellow and Director at Environment and Waste Management Division, TERI. In addition, he is also working as adjunct faculty and head for Center for Regulatory and Policy Research of TERI University. He has more than 30 years of consultancy or research experience in the area of municipal, industrial, and hospital waste management, waste to energy issues, impact assessment, air, water, and soil quality monitoring, site assessments, performance evaluation of ETP, and institutional strengthening and capacity building. He has obtained his PhD degree in hazardous waste characterization from Nagpur University while working as a project fellow at NEERI Nagpur. Prior to joining TERI, Sunil has worked for ERM India and at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology on development of landfill liner for containment of land disposal hazardous waste and deriving material balances and associated environmental pollutions for Hong Kong region as a part of postdoctoral research. So this is very brief introduction without taking much of your time, sir. On behalf of Srishti, I welcome you. Over to you.
Yep, thank you very much, and very good morning, all the students. So what I'll do is I'll put this on full screen. What I've done is my presentation is first to give you overview of solid waste management in India, and here also I'll focus more on municipal solid waste, but I'll give you kind of brief of other waste streams as well. And then towards the end, we'll also discuss in some slides what kind of challenges COVID brought, onset of COVID brought in terms of waste management, and what are the recommendation of agencies who are responsible for managing. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, please continue.
So,
sorry for the disturbance.
What are the agencies who are internationally responsible for waste management recommend about COVID waste management, and our own regulatory agency, Central Pollution Control Board, which played an important role in addressing advisories at the time of COVID in order to streamline the waste management in the COVID times. So with this very brief summary of the presentation, I'll start my presentation. And if you look at the content, it briefly discusses municipal solid waste, industrial hazardous waste, biomedical waste, e-waste, one or two slides, what are the present status of generation, and potential impact if these waste types are not managed in a proper manner. Then some options for waste recovery and recycling, and towards the end, with reference to COVID, how waste has to be managed. So present status, a slide on generation in terms of waste quantities. And you can see, starting from municipal solid waste, almost every kind of waste is generated in terms of million tons per annum, except for biomedical waste, which is less, but not least important because of the type of hazard which biomedical waste or waste which is generated from hospitals and healthcare facilities possesses. So in terms of municipal solid waste, it's around 62 million tons per annum, as reported by regulatory agencies, of course. Construction and demolition waste, though regulatory agencies, they mention much lower generation, but we estimate that around 500 million tons per annum of construction and demolition waste is also generated. And construction and demolition waste mainly comprises of all the construction activities in terms of flyovers, roads, buildings, bridges, and also buildings which are broken up when they become old or when they are renovated, and when even the roads and other infrastructures. So waste which is generated out of that is called construction and demolition waste. On industrial waste, there are two categories when we talk of industrial waste. One is one is hazardous waste. As the name suggests, hazardous waste is very toxic, very reactive, very flammable, combustible. So that is why it is called hazardous waste, and it is generated. This figure which I have shown you is largely waste generated from industries. Those industries which are registered with Central Pollution Control Board or State Pollution Control Boards in the states, and estimated generation is around 7.9 million tons per annum. Non-hazardous waste, again from industrial sources, but these are waste which are less uh, hazardous or very low hazard in terms of toxicity, in terms of reactivity. So that is why they are called non-hazardous waste. Mostly waste generated from mining activities. We have a lot of coal mining, a lot of iron ore mining, a lot of zinc mining, other metal mining, mineral and non-mineral mining. So waste generated from there. Waste generated also from large portion of this actually is, all our power generation in the country is from the coal. And coal, which the power generation companies use, has high ash content, and around 25-30% of coal is ash. And when this coal is burned for power generation, the large amount of ash is generated. So that is, currently estimated at around 125-130 million tons. So out of 200 million tons, 125-130 million tons is ash generated from coal combustion. Biomedical waste, as I said, lesser, 1.5 lakh tons per annum, but very important because of the very infectious characteristics, and that is where issue of COVID also becomes important, because it is very important to deal with infectious waste in a proper manner, so that people don't get infected while handling or while getting exposed to infectious waste. Electronic waste, you all handle electronic items, and you know what electronic waste comprises. Mostly all the electronic items around you. By definition, any instrument or any equipment which is working on battery or power is electronic item, and when it becomes waste, is called electronic waste. Most common ones are, of course, cell phones and laptops and desktops and all these items. Estimated generation in India is around 1.85 million tons per annum, but it is increasing very fast. It is increasing very fast because the electronic items which now producers produce, they last much lesser time. Earlier, you used to get items which would last you around 10 years, 12 years after you purchased it. But now every 5-6 years, people tend to change it. Mobile phones still faster. One tends to change it in 1 year, 2 year time, and it becomes a waste. So all that is about current generation of waste. Key issues. What are the key issues in terms of each of these waste streams? Why we are bothered about these waste streams? Municipal solid waste, as the name suggests, municipal solid waste is generated from cities, municipal activities, and households, institutional premises, commercial premises which are there in city. What are the issues? We don't segregate waste still to the extent that we should be doing. Though, if you look at Swachh Bharat Sarvekshan, Swachh Bharat mission documents, around 50% of households are now segregating waste at the source. But still, a lot more has to be done. Inefficient collection efficiencies in most of the cities range from 50 to 90%. 90% is generally for larger cities, and 50% for smaller and cities and medium towns. So that indicates that on a daily basis, not entire waste which is generated is collected. So some waste remains uncollected on the streets, on the roads, and that creates a problem. You are aware of what kind of problem. It not only attacks stray animals, but also is a nuisance in the city. Inadequate transportation facility in around 70% of the city. 70% of the cities still don't have proper transportation. Waste often, except for large cities, is transported open. and it keeps spilling everywhere while transporting. Larger cities have done better because of the better finances, where the waste is transported covered. So there's very little chance of spillage. Inadequate disposal facility. For the sanitary waste, for municipal solid waste, you require a scientific landfill site for disposal. And such landfill sites are costly. And most of the city governments, if you look at in city, very few cities have such kind of scientific landfill sites to dispose waste. Most of the waste in most of the cities go to low-lying areas, vacant plots, and there it gradually becomes a mountain and creates a problem of not only groundwater contamination, I'll discuss these later, but also air pollution problem, water pollution problem. In addition, what happens is, since much of the waste still goes to the landfill site unsegregated, and as I was seeing your profile, most of you are from biological sciences. You would know that organic component of the waste goes anaerobic degradation and produces methane. This methane, when it comes out from waste degradation, is called landfill gas if it is coming from the landfills. And landfill gas typically would have around 45 to 50% methane. And that would cause, if methane gets released from the waste dumping sites, it causes not only air pollution, but also is cause of concern for global warming, because methane is a greenhouse gas. And leachate, which is generated from waste, also causes water and soil contamination. In addition, what happens is, in the municipal waste dump sites, many times biomedical waste, say for example, from small clinics, from small pathology labs which are not regulated properly, they also go to the municipal solid waste dump sites. Waste from slaughterhouses, not all the slaughterhouses are regulated. So those who are not regulated, their waste also goes to municipal waste dump site. Industrial waste, often reaching municipal waste dump site. When I say industrial waste, there are a lot of small industries in the city which are operating in small houses, small factory premises. That also sometimes go to the municipal waste dump sites. And what it does is, it creates basically hazard to people who are working at the dump site, not only sanitary workers, but also waste pickers and rat pickers who are at the waste dump site, picking up valuable material from the waste sites. Related issue to municipal solid waste is land requirement, because I told you much of the waste still not segregated. So unsegregated waste still goes to the dumping site for disposal. And Central Pollution Control Board, in its report of 2012-13, had estimated what would be land requirement. And if you see these figures, they're simply mind blowing. For example, if no waste is treated, and if all the waste generation has to be disposed on land, then that would require around 340,000 meter cube of landfill space every day. And but presently, if you look at waste generation, around 20-25% of that waste is treated. Out of 133,760 tons per day, 26,000 tons per day is treated, and rest is disposed on land. So that would that ensures that some waste is treated, so landfill requirement reduces. But overall, I mean, if you look at landfill requirement for next 20 years, it's a huge amount of land which is required, around 66,000 hectares. If you look at annual basis, around 1240 hectares of land is required every year. And this is a huge requirement of land. No city is able to provide such kind of land for landfill disposal. So what is very important here to note that we need to maximize waste treatment, waste recovery, so that less and less amount of waste goes for landfill disposal, and less amount of land is required for landfill disposal. I was discussing about pollution issues. So on the left hand side, you see this is a disposal site. If you can see the cursor, this is the disposal site. And on the disposal site, what happens is waste is disposed, and whenever rain comes in monsoon, this is a picture from Delhi, the rainwater percolates in the waste site, and the water which comes out, dirty water, which is called leachate, you can see it's collected in a small pond type structure here, which is a low-lying area next to landfill. And on the right-hand side, you can see, since the site is not fenced, not protected, it has access to all the stray animals and cattle, and you can see even the dog drinking water from that leachate, drinking that leachate, not water. And as this leachate is very toxic in terms of heavy metals, in terms of hardness, in terms of other parameters, often these cattle die if they keep drinking that water for a prolonged period. So that is to show, and it's not only dangerous to these cattle and stray dogs and all these, but also at some point of time this will percolate down the ground and contaminate the groundwater. So it has got groundwater pollution potential as well. I told you about landfill gas. When the organic portion of the waste degrades in the landfill under anaerobic condition, it produces methane. And this is one of the sites again in Delhi where the landfill gas was coming out. And since rat pickers were there at the site picking up waste, somebody smoked, and this site has caught fire. And you can see actually fire burning from the gas which is coming out from the landfill site. It's like a gas burner. So, this not only creates air pollution, but also is a problem for the landfill if the landfill gas is not managed properly. Key issues for construction and demolition debris. What are the key issues? Currently, very little recycling and reuse. Very few cities have a C&D waste recycling facility. For example, Delhi has 2 facilities now, 1,000 tons per day and 500 tons per day. Ahmedabad has established a C&D waste recycling facility. Other cities are slowly now beginning to realize that they also need to set up facility for C&D waste recycling. Potentially, no recycling reuse happening, but most of the waste can be recycled. In absence of recycling facilities, waste is still going to the landfill or any abandoned area. When you move around on the city side, you'll often see construction and demolition debris disposed around, thus occupying valuable space either in the landfill or in the city, and also causing nuisance. For non-hazardous waste and hazardous waste, what are the key issues? For non-hazardous waste, we discussed that it's generated around to the tune of around 200 tons per day. For this huge quantity, there's no effective policy for recycling reuse. So people or agencies who want to recycle reuse, there's no incentive in the policy for recycling reuse of non-hazardous waste. Hazardous waste, since they are toxic waste, what are the key issues? Because of illegal disposal, we have a lot of contaminated sites in the country. CPCB again in its annual report estimates that we have around 300 such contaminated sites in the country which needs to be improved and which needs to be redeveloped. Lack of again incentive for recycling and reuse as for non-hazardous waste, and illegal disposal from small industries which are not regulated properly by State Pollution Control Board causes problem of these such contaminated sites. Oh, sorry, this is a repetition. So on the other hand, what happens is if you look at many small industries, they are not equipped to handle their raw material, their chemicals, which they are handling in a proper manner. So that creates a lot of contamination, a lot of pollution problems for the waste, and also the waste, a lot of waste problem which they generate. In this photograph, you'll see a small scale. This is the electroplating industry, which is doing electroplating. And in electroplating, what you do is on the metal surface, a lot of metal sheets are used in, say, for automobile manufacturing, for motorcycles, scooters. So these metal sheets need to be cleaned before the paint is applied. Because, I mean, if there is any impurity, there is any grease, there is any film, oxidized film on the metal surface, the paint would not stick properly. So this cleaning operation is done by electroplating process. And a lot of acids are used in the process. And you can see the people who are working here, they don't have got any personal protective equipment, and a place will have a lot of acid fumes and a lot of spillage. You can already see a lot of spillage around. So this kind of working environment certainly is not desirable and causes a lot of pollution, not only in the industry, but when this waste is disposed outside, that causes problem, as seen in this slide. Here, what you see is basically a drum containing oils, waste oil, because industry uses a lot of machinery and a lot of equipment are run. So for lubrication, a lot of oil is used. And this, when this oil becomes waste, they are stored in drums. And you can see, these drums not stored properly, not stacked properly, and are causing a lot of pollution by leaking and spillage. Again, another problem, I told you earlier that a lot of times small scale industries, they do illegal disposal. So many times, because why they do illegal disposal is because if they need to dispose their waste into sites which are provided by states, these sites charge money, and most of the time industry wants to save money, and sometimes what they do is they illegally dispose waste in the night time along the roadside and then run away. And you can see one of the, some of the waste being disposed on this road, on the roadside. Now imagine what would happen when the rain comes. Rain comes, it will kind of, whatever is water soluble here will get dissolved in the rain, and will run away with the rainwater and contaminate and pollute other sites. And also, whatever is not soluble will get washed away to nearby areas and causing pollution and nuisance there as well. This is again a classic case of groundwater contamination, and you can see this is a kind of, if you are given a water which is of this color, I'm sure you'll not like to drink this water. This is not a soft drink. This is water coming out of a hand pump. And why it is this color? Because there's an industry. There was an industry. This happened much earlier. In around 1993-94. There was an industry in Rajasthan, which was a dye intermediate industry. And dye intermediates are chemicals which are used in dyeing process, for fabric dyeing, for other dyeing operations. And within a year of operation, all the sludge, all the waste which they were generating, they were storing at the site. Unfortunately, that very year, there was a lot of rain in that area. Otherwise, in that area, there used to be very less rain. So they thought that if they store waste in open, there would not be any problem. Unfortunately, there was a lot of rain, and all the well water, the sludge got washed away, and all the well water got contaminated. Fortunately, it was dye, so you could know that contamination has happened, and nobody drank that water. And then subsequently, High Court came into action and asked the industry to close. And then the groundwater in that area was remediated, was redeveloped, was cleaned and remediated to original condition. Biomedical waste, what are key issues? See, biomedical waste, unlike other waste, contains a lot of material which can cause injury and disease, since it's an infectious waste. And at times what we do is in biomedical, in healthcare facilities, we use a lot of syringes, a lot of surgery items, a lot of ampoules, glass bottles and all. So if people are not careful managing these, then they can have risk of injury, and not only injury, but disease also, because of improperly treated waste. A lot of time, sanitary workers or people who are working in biomedical waste facility, in early days, they used to complain of hepatitis, which was as a result of getting exposed to infectious waste. So that is why high level of segregation and treatment is required for biomedical waste. But as I said earlier, waste is often mixed and seen dumped at the municipal waste dump site. which is sometimes a cause of concern. E-waste, though, we have to large extent basically addressed the first point, which is transboundary movement. A lot of e-waste movement used to happen from developed countries to developing countries. For example, e-waste generated in Europe, e-waste generated in country like Japan and also US. Why? These used to come to developing country for recycling because recycling was expensive in developed countries. So they used to find it convenient for sending it to country like India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Vietnam for recycling. Now China, just a second. Hello. No. Around 90% of global e-waste used to go to China. Now, since last 3 years, China has stopped taking this waste, and to some extent, this transboundary movement has been stopped. But still, illegally, one is not sure if this waste is still going in other developing countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, if it's not going to China. Improper recycling, wherever recycling happens, it's a lot of recycling is done in informal sector, which causes soil and groundwater pollution and contamination. And also people who are recycling, as I showed you earlier, if they are not using proper personal protective equipment, then they get exposed to acid fumes, all other toxic elements. And also often health issues are reported from e-waste recycling facility. As an example, I'll show you some slides which were taken from when e-waste recycling was happening in China. And you can see, these are kind of burning of e-waste, because e-waste also contains a lot of plastic items, and many times these plastic items are not useful to recycle. To recover non-plastic items, they are put on fire, and you can see what kind of pollution in these photographs it causes. And in terms of chemicals, these are kind of group of chemicals which can be emitted if the e-waste is burned. Though they look a little complicated, but the first three ones are basically dioxins and furans. And dioxins and furans are most toxic compounds known to human being. And they are all not, the interesting thing is that they are not found naturally in ecosystem. They are man-made compounds. They are often generated only when a waste is burnt or anything is burnt in improper condition. Fourth is polyaromatic hydrocarbons. Most of you would know what polyaromatic hydrocarbons is. And next is polychlorinated biphenyls and heavy metals of different types, mercury, lead, cadmium, nickel, which causes adverse health impact when one is exposed to such kind of waste. Similarly, if you do acid leaching of waste to recover copper, it can generate into acid fumes, fumes of nitric acid, fumes of hydrochloric acid, chlorine gas, sulfur dioxide, and all these are acidic gases. And if it is done in open, uncontrolled atmosphere by informal sector, then all these people, not only who are working on e-waste, but all the neighborhood population also can get affected by exposure to such acid fumes. And if their acid is discharged into water bodies, they can cause pollution of water bodies as well. This is again another illustration of, we use a lot of transformers for power supply, power regulation. And these transformers earlier, now those dry type of transformers are coming, which are air cooled, but there are still a lot of older transformers which are basically oil cooled. And this oil, when the transformers are sent for recycling, this oil many times is not recovered properly and not recycled properly. In this facility, the oil used to be drained in a river nearby. And you can see, if you see this photograph carefully, there is this huge tinge of oil floating on the surface, and this causes pollution. This causes pollution, and the water bodies, if you keep discharging oil in that, gradually all the flora and fauna in the water body die out, because oil doesn't allow any life to survive, because the sunlight cannot penetrate the oil layer, and also oil is pollution in itself. Another few photographs of burning of waste. I'll run through these quickly. These are kind of self-explanatory. The person working burning wire cable to recover copper, and large-scale burning of e-waste again, I mean, has potential to cause air pollution and also emit pollutants in the atmosphere. Now, from the impact side, we'll move to opportunities. What are opportunities in material recovery recycling? If you look at, I'll largely focus on municipal solid waste, because if you look at all the waste streams, it would not be possible to finish it in hours time. So MSW, municipal solid waste, can be segregated, can be unsegregated. In a lot of countries where land is a problem, sometimes what they do is they don't segregate the waste, send everything for incineration, and then the incineration residue is then managed in a proper manner. In countries where some segregation is happening, there are various pathways through which waste is processed. For example, organic waste can be composted, can be biodigested to produce biogas. Recyclables like glass, metals, paper, plastics, etc., can be sent for recycling. Sometimes what happens is recyclables are too dirty to basically clean and then sent for recycling. Such recyclables and their materials which cannot be recycled are called dry organics material. For example, mattresses or leather footwear or leather material, rags, cloths, which are too dirty. They can go for a process called pyrolysis or gasification, where they can produce a pyrolysis oil or gas for further use as a fuel, or can be processed and converted into something which is called RDF. Here, RDF stands for refuse-derived fuel. So fuel which is derived from processing waste of high calorific value, and then combustion of that fuel to recover energy or to recover value from that. If you look at why recycling is important, because recycling, there's an international data source which says that recycling generates more job than simple dumping of the waste. And for the same amount of waste, you can see dumping creates 6 jobs and recycling creates 36 jobs, so around 6 times more jobs. And these jobs are also much better at a higher income level than simple dumping of waste. So that makes the case for why waste recycling, other than addressing the landfill disposal problem, why waste recycling is essential. This is one example of how PET waste is all the beverage bottles generally, or water bottles, as you see in the photograph, how they are baled color-wise into different color bales, and then they are sent for recycling. And what kind of recycling products they can be processed into? This is one slide from a recycler who is called Ganesha Ecosphere. They do a lot of PET bottle recycling, and what they do is these PET bottles, when they are collected, they are kind of shredded and then produced into threads, and from these threads you can then produce various items like upholstery in the cars and vehicles, sofa mattresses, hand gloves, toys, and also large sheets for covering the drains and farms in the very cold countries. And interesting fact is that a lot of now PET threads are going into garment manufacturing. And in fact, here is that Indian cricket team which wears Nike dress is also produced from recycled PET bottles. Plastics can also go for road making. So the plastic bags, the plastic items which are too dirty to recycle can be shredded into small pieces and can be mixed with, if you see roads are made from coal tar. Coal tar is bitumen, and plastic is mixed in coal tar and then laid. And they say that the experts say that the roads which are laid by plastics last much longer. This road, last year we were in Jamshedpur, and Jamshedpur is a township run by Tata Enterprise, which is called Jasco. They have laid this road for mixed with plastics, and from last 5 years they've been using this road without any wear and tear. So that shows how different materials can be used in a very gainful manner. So this slide gives you basically what is the advantage of using plastics if you use them into road making. Not only saves bitumen in terms of the bitumen which they replace, strength and performance increased by 100%, no effect of radiation like UV, better resistance to water and water stagnation, because in the rainy season often road gets potholes because the tar actually gets washed away. This is not a problem with the plastic laid roads. No stripping, no potholes as a result, and no leaching of plastics. Another item which actually is a problematic in waste management is all the thermocol products which we get from packaging, for styrofoam which we get as a container in food items. Though companies are now using less and less styrofoam and more material which can be easily recycled, but still a lot of styrofoam or thermocol goes into packaging. For example, if you purchase large white goods like refrigerator or TV sets or such items, they're still packed with thermocol to ensure that they are not broken while transportation. So some municipalities, for example, this is photograph from Goa, have found out very innovative way of using these thermocol items. They just crush it into smaller pieces, and after crushing, they mix it with gypsum to make a board, artificial ceiling in the buildings, which to be used as an artificial ceiling material. This slide gives you example of anaerobic digestion when the waste is rich in organic material, easily degradable. Then other than composting, you can also do biogas generation. And this is a plant which is 5 tons per day plant in Maharashtra. And you can look at these figures, how much energy is generated, around 4 kilowatt hour per day. And of that, around 50 kilowatt is used by the power plant, the biogas plant, and 400 kilowatt per hour is supplied to municipal authorities, and they get paid for this energy which they generate. Now, a lot of interest is now is basically happening in the area of composting, because what used to happen earlier was that these compost, which I'll discuss a little later, composting used to be done in large land areas in open. And as cities develop, it's very difficult to find large land areas, and that has its own limitation. So people have started looking at if composting can be done in a smaller, controlled environment, where humidity can be controlled, where temperature can be controlled, where entire cycle can be done in a reactor, much like biogas digestion, but in in oxygen-rich environment. So this composting, though it is a little expensive, more expensive than doing composting in open, but is now catching up with say large housing societies, large hotels and restaurants which don't have any use for biogas. They can install such universal composter and produce compost out of the food waste, because they continuously keep generating food waste, large restaurants, large hotels. So this is very attractive option for them. As I said, when you do open composting, this is kind of composting in open, which is done in the cities. Wherever there is an area which is little away from population it is easy to do composting there. But in the cities where this is close to habitation, it is very difficult to operate because waste, as you know, smells. Waste also attracts flies, rodents, different kind of stray animals. This is called windrow composting, the composting which is done in open at a large scale. Why it is called windrow? Because if you see these rows, troughs, is actually waste is piled in such a manner that air can pass through on the both sides, and air can basically circulate in the waste pile. Because for aerobic composting, it's very the bacteria and microbes. It's necessary that air is enough oxygen is available. One problem with such composting is that since waste is most of the time composted unsegregated, if your waste is not segregated properly, and this is a mature compost plant, where you see after composting, compost has been separated, but a lot of material which is uncompostable also has to be separated from compost. And as you see, these are mostly plastic bags, dirty plastic bags, which cannot be recycled. So what is to be done with such kind of waste which is generated at the composting plant? They can be collected and densified into something which I said earlier is a refuse derived fuel. And such compact fuel, these are called fuel pellets. And these fuel pellets, once you convert your waste into these fuel pellets, now the advantage of handling this is that it's much easier to handle. There's no odor, there's no other nuisance, and much easy to store and transport. Now this can be like brick pellets or like coal pellets or like wood pellets. They can be used for energy recovery, either for waste to energy or for other industries if there are industries operating in that area. These also can be fed to. Now there's a big business opportunity happening in the cement sector. Cement sector, where the cement is produced, you know that cement is produced by burning coal, and this coal can be replaced by some such fuel partially. I mean, 10%, 20%. In Europe, if you see, they have been able to replace around 50% of their fuel requirement by this alternate fuel. So what happens in cement kiln? Why? I mean, it is advantageous to burn such waste in cement kilns, because cement kilns operate at much higher temperature, around 1500 to 2000 degrees centigrade, which ensures complete destruction of pollutants. High residence time, because you need enough oxygen in the combustion area where waste is burned. So residence time is typically more than 5 seconds. If you compare it with incinerators, generally incinerator residence time is around 2 to 3 seconds. It ensures complete destruction of compounds, so there's no chance of release of dioxins and furans. And as I said, dioxins and furans are very toxic compounds, and we don't want people to get exposed to dioxins and furans. Total neutralization of acid gases. So if there are any sulfur dioxide or hydrogen chloride generated, because cement process also uses lime in the process. That lime neutralizes the acid gases which are coming out, and the residue which comes out of burning of such alternate fuel basically then becomes a part of cement matrix itself, and there's no need for landfilling. So that's the advantage of if this fuel is used in a cement kiln. Now this slide shows you how construction and demolition debris has been recycled into very useful products. You are familiar with these useful products, pavement blocks and curbstones. Waste can also be, as I said earlier, can also be gasified. The combustible waste, which has calorific value but which is not degradable, can be gasified, and gas can be used as a fuel. Another concept on biorefinery, where waste is processed into different, since you're from a biotechnology, biochemistry background, waste has a lot of valuable material which can be, through use of enzymes, through use of certain reactions, a lot of useful products can be derived from waste. Now, this concept is also catching up globally, where waste is now being used for producing different value-added chemicals. We did a small project on landfill gas extraction, and this is to show you how landfill gas is extracted and then burnt before it is let out in the atmosphere. So that idea was to know how much gas is generated from such burning of waste. And this is the kind of site where we had put our facility for landfill gas extraction. This is a landfill site in Delhi. And on the right hand side, if you see, there's a DTC bus depot. On the left hand side, you see these buildings. This is a hospital. So we're kind of exploring if enough gas is available. This gas can be purified and can be used as a transport fuel by this bus terminal, or can be used for steam purposes in the hospital. So there are enough users if the landfill gas can be harvested. Commercially, worldwide, there are a lot of technologies which are available. If sufficient amount of landfill gas is there are commercial engines, like this is engine from Caterpillar, which can burn this landfill gas to produce power. And this power can be fed to electricity grid. This is kind of results which we got from our landfill gas estimation exercise. Under conservative condition, around 2,700 meter cube of this gas can be generated from this large landfill site in Delhi, and which can be used if, this can be harvested properly. These are economic benefits which I discussed. I'm running through quickly for some of these slides because I also needed to discuss about COVID issues. Another concept which is catching up is because of the landfills which are there in the country for, say, example, 20 years, 25 years, how to make use of these landfills, which have now become a kind of mountains of waste, to open the landfill and to basically remove all the valuable material which is there and the inert soil-like material which is coming out, to use it in a construction application. So this landfill mining or biomining is again one upcoming concept which is catching up with in the country as one of the possible technological solutions. Chemical sludge, this is chemical sludge from dyeing industry, produces another challenge because it's hazardous waste. And what can be done with such chemical waste is you can produce such tiles by mixing it with cement, by mixing it with limestone and sand. And these tiles can then be used for construction application. This is kind of saving. If you don't dispose this waste, then an entrepreneur can earn some revenue from this against the cost disposal of this waste. Now I'll run you through some slides on decentralized composting and what are the initiatives some cities have taken. Say, for example, this is pit composting in the garden. A lot of horticulture waste gets generated and the pit composting is done. You can also do it in households where these kind of composters on your right hand side is available. If there's a space in houses, if they are not multi-storied, they are independent houses, it very easily the daily waste generated from houses can be composted. Similar bin composting here, where composting can be done in the plant bin itself, and it can support the plants also. On the roadside, few cities have tried this innovative way of composting. Similar composting on the roadside. On the drains, often the drains are open and create a problem of smell and odor. So this not only covers the drain, but also compost the waste which is coming out in that area. Larger composting at the community level, where the larger pits are excavated, are constructed, and at the community level you do composting. Composting done on the roadside, and also in the process it beautifies the area. Compost mixture very economically can be prepared with a lot of locally available material, cow dung, water, rock phosphate. If rock phosphate is not available, you can also add jaggery. to basically produce low cost biocultures. Now, important issue, I mean, since we also wanted to discuss about COVID, how waste management has been happening since last 1 year, and what are the concerns with COVID. Now, of course, the cases have gone down much lesser, but in the peak time, what was suggested globally, if you look at, though, I mean, this is a little complicated slide, but in a simple term, what I'll say is, what it says is that on the top half is the COVID containment zone, where the COVID has happened, and the waste can be contaminated with COVID virus. So all that waste is collected separately. Even if you don't segregate, it's fine, but it is collected separately. And as a treatment, after the designated vehicles, which are COVID vehicles, they collect the waste and take it to the treatment facility. They are either burnt in the incinerators in the biomedical waste treatment facility, or industrial incinerators which are there. They're not to be composted, not to be digested because of the virus which they contain. And the zones where, I mean, households are safe and there's no COVID contamination, their waste segregation should happen properly, and the green waste should go for composting, and other waste for recycling, and inerts can then go for disposal. So what was the recommendation of ISWA? ISWA is International Solid Waste Association, which looks at the policy issues globally on solid waste. They suggested that there should not be any service disruption, including recycling, when the COVID first time came, because waste management is the most important aspect in maintaining human hygiene and human health. So what they said, that don't stop waste picking, waste collection, but change it, modify it to a certain extent. For example, discontinue manual handling, no human handling of waste to the extent possible. On all the automated handling should be done, because of the COVID infection and chances of COVID virus getting infecting the waste handlers. And the waste which are suspected of to be collected from COVID areas, storage for at least 3 days after collection or before collection. So it was suggested that households which generate such waste in COVID areas, they store it for 3 days and then they give it for disposal, because it was seen that virus survives for 3 days on most of the surfaces, and after that it dies out. It survives on plastic packaging for longer time, so avoid plastic packaging to the extent possible if you are in a COVID infected areas. Waste services were in many countries identified as essential service. In India also, waste service providers were our frontline workers, and so proper provision of personal protective equipments was done for them. Disinfection at proper intervals, frequent hand washing, and hand washing advisory was also issued to common people also, that as and when possible you keep washing your hand at frequent intervals. Treatment of discarded masks and gloves. If masks and gloves are discarded, they should be properly treated. They should not be thrown here and there. Sanitation of all equipment, vehicles and implements. And household hazardous waste. Household hazardous waste, except sanitary waste, was required to be stored by household till COVID. You from a contamination zone, you come to non-contamination zone. What this household hazardous waste is, generally, say for example, batteries, tube lights, bulbs, which you can store for a longer period if they are not working. Sanitary waste, of course, if you store for a longer period, then it degrades and decays. So sanitary waste was to be managed immediately, but other waste was required to be stored. CPCB also gave guidelines for healthcare facilities, healthcare workers under COVID conditions. Collection of bags, collection of COVID waste into double layer bags, bag in bag, so that there's no exposure from COVID virus. Label them as COVID-19 and keep them separate, and transport separate if possible. Daily disinfection and implementation of all the implements which are used in treatment at the healthcare facility. by 1% sodium hypochlorite solution. Pans contaminated with feces, because it was shown that even the night soil or feces from the COVID patient contains COVID virus, should be disinfected with 0.5% chlorine, and other waste need to be packed in yellow bags. Use of PPEs, used PPEs such as goggles, face shield, splash-proof aprons, all these were not to be reused again and should go into red bag for incineration. Used masks, for example, including triple layer N95 mask, head cover caps should go into yellow bags. For again, as a COVID-19 waste, and for disinfection and then incineration. Pre-treat viral transport media, plastic vials, vacuum cleaners, Eppendorf tubes, which are used in labs and testing and all these as per biomedical waste rules, and collect in red bag for final incineration. Gloves and masks generated at home need to be packed in paper and kept for 72 hours so that virus doesn't survive before giving it for collection, and after cutting the gloves and masks so that they cannot be reused. This was kind of a proper layout which CPCB provides in a COVID isolation ward, how waste has to be managed after waste is put into red bag, say collected in red bag and put into container, immediate disinfection of the entire items, and then after disinfection needs to be transported to biomedical waste treatment facility. Storage and handling also, it was suggested that the healthcare facilities which were handling otherwise healthcare biomedical waste need to have a separate storage area for COVID-19 waste and separate transportation fleet for COVID-19, and also separate set of people who are handling COVID-19 waste with proper coveralls and PPEs and face shield, everything, so that they are also not infected while collecting and processing and treating the COVID waste. So with this, I'll end my presentation here. I hope I could cover enough material and in the given time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Gaurav.
Hello, sir. Thank you very much for such informative lecture. Sir, my question is that as you covered a case study of groundwater in Rajasthan, which had become leachate, sir, how do we remediate such kind of water if we are facing such situation?
If the groundwater is contaminated, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
See, to the extent possible, one should avoid groundwater contamination, because what happens is groundwater is a confined water body. So once a groundwater is contaminated, it's very costly to treat it. So in most cases, what happens is if groundwater is contaminated for improper waste management, or say for example, from arsenic or from fluoride or other pollutants. Sometimes if there are other groundwater sources, this groundwater source is closed and isolated and no one uses that water. If there is no other water source, then what treatment process has to be applied, which is called pump and treat. So you keep on pumping groundwater and keep on treating and using it, and or otherwise, if you are not using it, sending back again to aquifer after treatment. But best option, most cheapest option is to prevent groundwater contamination from happening.
So there is one more question. You talked about plastic waste conversion into fuel pellets.
Yes.
Sir, how do we use that as energy recovery source?
Because what happens is when you compress them and convert them into fuel pellet, the calorific value of this pellet is around 3,500 kilocalories per kg, which is energy content in the waste. So they can then be burned much like low-grade coal to produce energy. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Sir, what about, sir, nano and microplastics? How we will remediate that?
This is something which we are still struggling with, because I mean, if you look at microplastic issues, uh, uh, some of you might know that there are healthcare products also which contain microplastic, microbeads, plastic
Yes,
beads.
yes.
So a lot of European countries have now taken a decision that they will not use any such microbeads in their healthcare products to get rid of such microplastics. But plastics which are disposed not properly also over the time undergo degradation because of interaction with sunlight, photo kinetic degradation in nature, and they also over a longer period of time generate microplastics. So the best way to address that is basically to uh, uh, collect your waste properly, not to litter and not to dispose any waste outside, so that less and less chance of microplastic getting generated is there. Because microplastics, the main problem with microplastics is that though I mean they are not to date harmful to human beings, because I mean if you ingest something contaminated with microplastics, they also get secreted out of kidney. They are not retained in bodies. What the literature shows so far. So, but in marine and aquatic flora and fauna, they are creating havoc because they get stuck in not microplastics but mesoplastics get stuck in uh, their respiration gills, and many times they die because of that. Concern here is not microplastic in itself, but they are pollutants which get absorbed on microplastics. Something which is called POPs, persistent organic pollutants. They, if they are not disposed properly, they get absorbed on microplastics. And when you consume that polluted or contaminated microplastics, then these POPs will accumulate in your body over the period. That would be cause of cancer. Okay.
So, sir,
There's a
we
particular concept about
don't
e-dust.
have any means of remediation of that.
No, not so far.
Should I? Should I ask?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so there is a particular concept about e-dustbin. So in Western countries, or I thought, as far as I know, in India also at some points it is prevalent. So e-dustbin is a proper segregation of the waste, which is like we divide it into parts. So do you have any take on this?
For the e-waste.
No, e-dustbin. E-dustbin is basically that it segregates the
Oh,
type of.
you saying dustbins?
Yes, yes, e-dustbins.
Yeah, yeah,
As-
sure, sure. I mean, so see any technology which helps in segregation of waste, basically then allows you that much effective waste recycling. So issue is how to, if you generate, if you kind of come out with very sophisticated technology for waste handling and waste management. You remember, I mean, you should also not forget that in developing countries, all these has to be kept in public places. And in public places, if people run away with manhole covers, I'll not be surprised if someone runs away with the such dustbins also and sells it as a recycling material. So in our country, it should be robust system. Manual is not a problem unless you are dealing with infectious material, but something which most of the people use and doesn't get stolen.
And also, sir, the part of bioplastics, like bioplastics are like very costly in a way. We like
Yes,
its production is costly.
yes.
So we could come out with some strategy, or like I have read about. I have a particular literature review about it. So why can't we have a more of bioplastic? Because bioplastics can be easily degraded by yeast also. So
Yeah, yeah. Bioplastics, one aspect is that it is degradable, but uh, other aspect is it's not as easily degradable as composting material. You still require a specialized machines or processes to degrade such plastics. Problem comes when you generate bioplastic waste and it gets mixed with normal plastic waste, and there's no way to find out if it's bioplastic or if it's a normal plastic. Then the problem comes in either trying to compost it or trying to recycle it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, Ayush.
Yeah. Sir, recently the world is moving toward the renewable source of energy, sir. Tesla and other all companies are coming out with the electric cars and all,
Yes.
and they are even producing the solar power. So
Yes.
all those needs lithium-ion battery.
Yes.
If I see over there, the big problem is in the future is coming from the lithium-ion battery as well. So
Yes.
the solution for that, like, have you started working on that, or any solutions are there for that?
See, lithium-ion batteries, actually, you'll be surprised that they are recycled. They are recycled by not for recovery of lithium, because lithium is very cheap material, but for recovery of cobalt, because lithium-ion contains more cobalt than lithium. Okay. So, why lithium is so cheap? Because I mean, the lithium geopolitics is largely influenced by China. China controls most of the mines which produce lithium, and they purposefully keep the cost of lithium low so that no one tries to recycle it because of the low cost. And they kind of dominate the market for producing lithium related material. But uh, once you have, in India also, Ministry of Information Technology and Electronics is trying to set up lithium battery recycling facility, so that I mean the lithium which is recovered can, but for that for using that lithium, you should have a lithium battery manufacturing facility also in the country, so that any recovered recycled lithium can go back into manufacturing these batteries. Otherwise, there's no use in recycling lithium battery and recovering lithium if you can't use it. Plus, lithium-ion configuration, lithium-ion batteries are also to be handled very carefully. They can kind of explode if they are not handled properly. So I mean, a lot of trained recycling facility has to be established as and when lithium-ion batteries become problem. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question was the way you told methane has been extracted from this landfilling and all. Sir, why can't we supply those all methane to the household for the normal regular use and all?
It can be done. It can be done. Issue here is, say, for example, in a lot of other countries where their sanitary landfills, scientific landfills, the difference between sanitary and scientific landfill is that, and open dumps, is that sanitary landfills have installed gas collection system from the very beginning. So they kind of invest money in developing landfill and install gas recovery system in the beginning itself. Whereas at open dump site, there's no gas recovery system. So gas keeps escaping from every side whenever it gets generated. So in order to recover gas from there, you need to install, you first need to seal the landfill from all sides, which is difficult once you have disposed waste for 25, 30 years. It is very expensive then to seal the landfill. Typically, we estimated that for a typical landfill, you require at least 25, 30 crores rupees for just sealing the landfill, and then start extracting the gas for possible application. But it can be done. If local body can invest such kind of money, it can be done.
Sir, one more was like recently there are various factory for plastic to energy conversion over there. Those gases which are coming out from those plants, are they being treated and given into the air, or they are just left it on the air?
No, typically, I mean, if you look at pyrolysis plant or gasification plant, the gases which are coming out should be cleaned, and there is a air pollution control system which should be installed to clean these gases. Now, the oil, which is a product, say from pyrolysis, can be used as a fuel. In gasification process, it's a syngas or producer gas, which is a mixture of hydrogen, carbon monoxide, which is a high calorific value. And this is used as a fuel. For example, in Gujarat, if you look at Bhavnagar, close to Bhavnagar, there are a lot of tile manufacturing facilities. So what they do is they use coal, but gasify this coal into producer gas and then use it for energy applications. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Sir, I have a question.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yes, Subrajit, you can continue.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
So first of all, I would like to thank sir for such an informative presentation, sir. So I have a question regarding industrial waste management, sir.
Mhm.
Sir, sir, we all know that government have already set up that Prevention and Control Pollution Act since 1970. Okay, sir. So still we are getting means before commercialization a MVP product, we have to go through all the laws and act.
Yes.
Still, sir, at the end of the day, we are getting tons of that waste product from that industries only. So
Yes.
why this is going happening, sir?
It's because environmental protection is not internalized in the cost of production. If you, I mean, you all must be wondering why recycling is cheap in developing countries and why it is expensive in developed countries. Not only labor cost, but also cost of protecting the environment is much higher in developed countries because monitoring is strict. If you internalize environmental cost in production, then you take proper care of your waste which is generated and you ensure that no such waste is disposed outside or released outside. Okay.
Okay, so still, before going to commercialization, means from MVP to commercialization, means they have to pass through these different type of papers, and
Yes.
they have to tell that what type of waste they are producing or what type of waste they are generating from their product.
Yes.
Still, sir, if we can tell them about this act, and if they are going through this act, this act must not allow them to go through commercialization, or they should work on their MVP product to, or they should work on the waste management to make it more viable and less, make it more eco-friendly. So why this is not happening, sir?
See,
This should be.
no, it is happening in certain sectors. For example, the petrochemicals, refineries, large industries, because less and less waste, it is in their benefit if they generate least amount of waste, because then they are producing the products more efficiently if they're generating lesser waste and lesser waste to be managed then. But as a chemical reaction, I mean, whenever you use raw material and produce a product, it cannot be 100% efficient process, which converts all the raw material into product. There will be some waste always generated, and this has to be managed. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Welcome.
hello, sir.
Yeah. So, Brigitte.
Sir, I had a question regarding COVID waste management issue. Sir, regarding the the PPE kits that we use and we dispose them and over the red bags. Sir, the red bags are then incinerated later,
Yes.
right, sir?
Yes.
Sir, during this incineration process, harmful chemicals also gets released, which in the process gets water treatment.
Scrubber. Treated with scrubbers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So there can also be a case regarding the water pollution. We
Yes.
are not doing air pollution, but instead there is water pollution going on, sir.
Yes. Yes. See, I mean, only those incinerators are allowed to operate which has proper air pollution control system. And in air pollution control system, it's a combination of various technologies, including water scrubber. But when you're using water scrubber, the wastewater which is generated in the scrubbing process has to then be treated. You cannot discharge that wastewater without treatment. So it has to be treated before you can discharge it into municipal supplies. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for making this discussion interesting.
It was really wonderful, sir, to see all these kids are interacting with you.
I'll have to
And
take
thank
a
you so
call.
much for your.
I'll have to take a
Yes,
call.
yes, sir. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, good morning, ma'am. How are you? मैं actually presentation कर रहा हूँ. So I'm in discussion. Shall I call you after some time? हाँ हैबिटेट में ही हूँ मैम. Sure मैम, but around 11 मैं बस खत्म कर रहा हूँ. I'm winding it up. Only thing is 11:40 I need to go to Defense Colony for a meeting. तो आप अगर यहाँ हैं तो मैं I'll quickly come down and meet you. ठीक है. Yeah. Sure. Sorry, I had a call from one of the ministry officers. Yes,
Yeah, no problem, sir. Thank you so much for your time, sir. You accepted our invitation out of your busy schedule, and that was really wonderful, sir. I'm sure these kids would going to get benefit out of this.
Sure.
Thank you once again, and sir, we look forward for your support and contribution in such future workshop. Thank you so much.
Same, my pleasure. Basically to interact with all of you, and we also keep learning every time we have such presentations.
Yes, sir.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
I'll leave because actually I have to leave for another meeting. So sorry about that.
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you, sir. So guys, you can take 5-minute break quickly, and then we have another session at 11:30. Right? So please join before time. I really don't like to every time tell you that please join. So this is not good. So go and come back quickly.